Okay, this is a very tough problem and one that you definitely have to find evidence for. Otherwise, it's very easy to get this one wrong. So it says the author primarily makes use of which of the following to convey his point. So basically, what does he use? What kind of like writing tool does he use to really get his point across in this essay? So let's look at our answers. A says hypothetical scenarios. So a hypothetical is kind of like where you do a thought experiment where you say something like, if I were to do this, then let's think of what would happen, right? So it's like very like if then statements, like if this, then maybe this would happen, right? If I look at my passage, I don't see very much evidence for him saying if we did this, we would do this, right? So I don't like hypothetical scenarios where he's making up like random if scenarios to see what would happen. B, broad generalizations. Now, broad generalizations means that you're making sweeping statements about a group of people without really providing evidence for that statement. Well, let's look. Like, let's pick random sentences in this passage, right? If I pick like line 21, it says, Black Americans have managed to sustain links with the continent of their origin against tremendous odds. Is that making a sweeping statement for a whole group of people? Yeah, I think so. It's just basically saying Black Americans, right? And it's talking about all Black Americans have managed to sustain links with the continent, right? No real evidence. He's just kind of saying that statement, right? Yeah, just pick any sentence in here. Line 33. It says, "We have sought to understand each other ever since we were separated so long ago. For centuries, we have gazed at one another across the transatlantic divide like a child seeing itself in the mirror for the first time." Again, we. He's talking very generally. He's just like talking for all Black Americans, right? And all Black Africans, not really providing evidence. So in terms of my answer choices, I like B, right? Now, historical facts, definitely not, right? He doesn't provide dates or any like events that happened in history. He doesn't really provide any evidence at all. So I don't like C for that reason. Now, D is a common one that a lot of people put, personal anecdotes, because of that like ancestor quote that he brings up. But a personal anecdote is kind of like a personal memory or story. So when I think of a personal anecdote, it would be something like, when I was 10 years old, my grandmother took me to the mall and blah, right? So like that is a personal anecdote where you're telling something that happened in your life. Not necessarily just a quote that was passed down through generations, right? That's not a story necessarily. So that's why D isn't quite right. And he also doesn't primarily use that, right? He only says that one quote from his ancestors. And then in the rest of the paragraphs, there's really nothing about his life, right, that ties in here. And then E, scholarly analysis. Again, that would be like using references and other literature to kind of make a point about to support his thesis, and he's really not doing that. He's really just making sweeping statements about groups of people to try to drive his point home, right? But he really doesn't provide too much evidence. So for that reason, I like B.